Hello, and welcome to yet another retro channel. Why is the bench empty today? Well, I'm building suspense. I'm going to tell you a little story, and I don't want you to jump ahead of me. So, everybody in this game, this retro computing game, or most everybody anyway, has a Holy Grail machine that they've been looking for, a machine that maybe they've wanted for a very long time. I'm no different. Um, Most of you know that back in 1977, the Holy Trinity were released. Those were the Apple II, the Commodore PET uh, 2001, and the TRS-80 microcomputer system, later to be called the Model 1. Um, those are obviously holy grails for me, but that's not the one we're talking about today. Most of you know that in 1980, a couple of other computers were released, the VIC-20 by Commodore and the TRS-80 color computer line. The color computer 1 came out. In 81, things continued with the Apple II Plus, the IBM PC 5150, and then things progressed from there through the Commodore 64 and several others. However, a lot of people miss the year 1979. In 1979, a friend of mine got a computer. Now, I only had the Atari 2600 at the time. Um, Everybody knows the 2600. It's substandard graphics and sound, but it got the job done if you wanted to play video games on your TV. But my friend got a computer that was just released, and I got to play on it. Now, I didn't get to do any programming on it, so I still say my first exposure to programming a computer was the TRS-80 Model 1 or TRS-80 microcomputer system that I got to use on a field trip to our high school. But the first computer I actually played game on was this one that my friend had. And the quality of the graphics and sound on that machine, uh, above and beyond the Atari 2600, was rather astounding. Now, the keyboard was crap. It was a membrane keyboard, and a bad membrane keyboard at that. So if I had wanted to program, it would have been a miserable experience. But that computer did have a big brother. And that big brother was the one I fell in love with and wanted to get. That big brother became my holy grail. And of course, it was well out of my, I was a 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid, well out of my price range, and also more than my parents were going to spend on a computer system. So I didn't get a computer of my own until several years later when I got my VIC-20. But I have frankly lusted after this machine for all these years and never got one. They're a bit pricey. They were a bit pricey, and they're still a bit pricey on eBay. So I hadn't run across one that fit into my plans. Anything that I could buy and use until about 3 weeks ago. I ran across a listing on Facebook Marketplace, a local listing about 35 miles from me, for one of these computers, a game cartridge, the basic cartridge. This computer doesn't come with basic built-in. You had to pop a cartridge into it. Came with the cassette drive, a couple of crappy joysticks, but joysticks nonetheless. And he was asking about half what you would normally see them for on eBay. And he was offering to ship anywhere in the country. So I took a chance and I contacted him, and I asked him if he'd take $25 less if he didn't have to ship it if I came and picked it up, and he said, sure, no problem. So I drove across town, well, to another city, to a suburb of Columbus, about 30 miles from me, and went to this gentleman's house. And he pulled out the box, and I paid him, and I got my Holy Grail computer. And here it is, the computer I have always wanted, the beautiful tank of a computer, the Atari 800. Desperate to get a hold of one of these machines for all these years, and finally came up with it. However, I got an even bigger surprise. I didn't look at the listing quite right. Plenty of pictures, but a couple pictures of the computer, or what I thought was the computer. When I got there, again, for about half of what you can expect to pay for one of these on eBay, I got two of them. So, we're going to take a look today at the Atari 800, a beautiful tank of a machine. And what we're going to do, I'm going to put this one down. Let's take a look at the Atari 800. This is an RF cable. Most people take these off at some point. I probably will when I have this thing opened up. It just plugs in inside, if I remember right. So that's easy. The two 800s that I got, the other one, the one that I've taken off the bench, that one worked right out of the box when I brought it home. I hooked it up, I tested the power supply, I plugged it in, hooked it up to a TV with an analog RF input, and it worked great. This one is a little different. This one is missing 8 keys. So I found actually an STL file on Thingiverse for keycaps for the Atari 800 that fit. They're not the best. They're not a great solution. They're not going to be permanent, but they do get the job done in the meantime. If you look at the underside, um, the stems are a little narrower than they need to be. So I've used just some tape to wrap around it to give it a little more width, thickness, so that they fit a little more snugly. And I put that in upside down. All the keys come out that simply, so it's not, if you see me popping them out with too much ease, that's just the way these keys are. That's the way it goes. So they do work. I mean, they get the job done. The keyboard works. The keyboards on both of them work, apparently completely, but I did have to put those caps on. Obviously, they don't have captions on them, so you don't know what key they are unless you know that that's break, and that's delete and backspace, and that is the greater than arrow and the insert key. That's caps and lower. It's a toggle key. You press it, or it's not it's not a toggle key. You press it without a shift to go into lowercase mode. You shift and press it to go into capital mode, uppercase mode. And this is the asterisk, the right movement arrow, and the caret. And then these, of course, are and an M, and this is escape. So those keys are missing on this one, but it's usable with these 3D printed replacements. The other thing that was wrong was this was it wouldn't fully boot up. It would come on, and it would fail the boot sequence. If you open this up, you'll see that there are 2 cartridge slots, left cartridge, right cartridge. Most things for the 800 will say left cartridge. I don't honestly know of any software that uses the right cartridge slot. I'm guessing there is some out there. I just don't know what it is. So everything I have, or everything I will have, will use the left cartridge slot. But if you look in here, there are 2 screws. And if we remove those 2 screws, we will gain access to a compartment with some cards inserted into it. And once those screws are removed, you can then pop this lid off and you'll see this card compartment. Now look at, you've got shielding here. Look at this die-cast aluminum shield that's in here. This thing is, like I said, built like a tank, but it's beautiful. This is a little thing that holds the cards. Some of the older of these machines, these cards were actually in cases, but the later models, the cards were just bare, and I think that was something to do with an overheating problem. So you have these 4 cards. These 3 cards are the RAM cards. Each of them holds 16K, so this is a 48K machine. And then this is the ROM card. Those are the computer's ROMs. Each of the memory cards has 8 16K, 16 kilobit each, 4116 DRAMs. And the dates on these are 82, so this is definitely a later model 800, because like I said, they came out in 1979, but this one was built in 82 and sold in 82. And like I said, this machine wasn't booting when I first got it, and I just had an instinct. Maybe I'm developing instincts for this type of thing, but it just seemed to me like the problem, it felt like a RAM problem. So what I did was I swapped around these 3 cards, took one out, swapped the other 2 around to see which one might have a memory problem, and it turned out that this one did indeed have a problem. So as long as I just had these 2 in, the machine would boot. With this one in, it wouldn't. And since all these are already socketed, it was a simple matter to just swap out 4116s until I found the one that was bad, if there was just one bad. And I actually got very lucky. It was the first 4116 that I tried. So I swapped that, popped this card back in, and now this machine is booting normally. So let's take a look at that. I have to put the top back on here because there is a switch, a hold down switch that has to be held down for the machine to power up. So without that switch in place, you can't boot the machine. Come on. I've got to get this little hold down in place. Sorry. Nope, it doesn't go that way. It goes this way. Or does it not go this way either? Oh, which way does this thing go? Okay, it goes this way. Let's see. I think it goes. Come on, there we go. All right. Now, pop this back on. And then we can put the, if you boot it up with nothing, no cartridge inserted, it'll open up in Atari Notepad. Because like I said, this thing does not have BASIC built into it. You have to use a cartridge for BASIC. So if I switch it on right now, nope. If I power it up, this uses a 9-volt AC power supply, so just a transformer. And it does have an AV output, which is similar to the Commodore 64 early 5-pin models. There's only one pin that's different of the 5, and that is... So this is a 5-pin connector, and it is similar to the Commodore 64, except for one pin difference. The pin that on the Commodore 64 is audio in is actually, I think, the chroma out. This actually does have chroma and luma out, just like the Commodore 64 does. So when people might tell you that Commodore was the first one to do something like S-Video, that's not actually true. It was this computer 3 years earlier in 1979 that had chroma and luma out on it. But we'll be using it in composite mode right now because I don't have a cable built. I'll do that a little later. So let's go ahead and now switch it on. Take a minute for my retro tank to sync up. And there we go. So now you can see if I open the door, that little switch will be released and the power will shut off. So the power light will go. There you go. So it won't let you insert or remove a cartridge while the power is on. That's a good safety precaution. So here is Atari Basic. There we go. Oh. And there is Atari Basic. So we have a working machine now with the memory corrected. And I can show you the one game that came with these. And I actually got 2 copies of this with the lot. So I got 2 copies of Defender. And this is a pretty good version of Defender. Joystick. Where did I put the joystick? There are, I should actually probably go through this. There are 4 joystick ports on the front of the machine. On the side, you have your AV port. This is where you would connect cassette drive or floppy drives or printers. This is called SIO, serial IO. Kind of an odd connector, unusual, but you can get more modern SD solutions to work with that. This is the channel selector switch, power switch, and the power input jack, which is just a standard barrel. Nothing on the left-hand side, and the back just has the RF audio or RF AV out cord. So we'll plug in the joystick here and boot up Defender. Now you're not going to hear much sound. Both of these machines, there's not much sound coming out of the AV. When hooked up through RF, it's just fine. So the audio is there, and you can hear it faintly out of here. I think there might be a bad op amp in both of them, both the machine that was complete and this one. But here is Defender. We have to use these buttons to start. Like I said, one of the better versions of Defender, and doesn't make you use Doesn't make you use reverse and thrust. It just actually goes the direction your joystick tells it to go, which I think is an improvement over the original Defender. Oops, I died. Okay, so there's this computer playing a game. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to open this thing up and take a look inside. So, let go. Get one of my little magnetic trays to hold all the screws. Add the two that we've already removed, the ones from under the lid. And then disconnect power, disconnect the AV, remove the cartridge, remove the lid. I'm going to go ahead and, just for safety's sake, remove the RAM and ROM cartridge, RAM and ROM cards. Set them aside somewhere safe. And we can flip the machine. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws. I don't know if there are any under the feet yet or not. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay. Now, see, does the top come away now? Or do we have more? Oh, it looks like the bottom comes away. So, okay. There's the bottom of the case. A little debris in there. And a spring, which I'm sure goes somewhere. We'll have to figure that one out. Internal speaker, which is the click of the keyboard. I don't think it does much more than that. Sorry. Speaker. And you can start to see this shell, this outer portion of the shell, the top portion of the shell is die-cast aluminum. I think that is 2. So we'll go ahead and set the bottom of the case aside and see what it takes to get the rest of this out of here. Okay, we've got a screw here and a screw here. No. Screw down here. It's black and it's against a dark colored PCB and I missed it. So now, now we can extract the main board, and we've got a connector for the keyboard here that we've got to remove. Being a bit stubborn. There we go. Okay. Now, here's the top of the case with the keyboard PCB. And these 4 buttons activate these 4 key switches. And this is the power LED. It's like these buttons clip into place. And of course, the rest of the keyboard buttons are attached to the key switches. Now, I believe, or I'm pretty sure this is, actually, I'm almost certain, this is a stack pull keyboard. This one is a little less finicky than the one that Adrian Black worked on his channel. So this is actually an easier to work on keyboard. But ours is working in great shape, so we're not going to be doing much with that. We may do a little cleaning. But now you see this monster chassis with the amazing die-cast RF shield. This section is power supply. This is input output with the keyboard encoder, or with the keyboard connector and the joystick ports. Now let's get this big shell off of here. First we'll pull out the power supply board. I'm doing this not just to look at it, which it's an amazing machine to look at, but I am also going to recap this board. It is over 40 years old, and these caps, though they actually look pretty good, could stand a change. And I've already bought the capacitor kits from console 5. Why are we still stuck here? Oh, we've got a connector, so I'll have to carefully pop that connector loose. There we go. So there is the power supply board. Pop that connector, and here, as I said, is where the RF cable is connected. It's just a jack mounted to the motherboard, and then the cable is connected to that. So a lot of people will do this, and I'm going to do it for mine. I'll remove that. And there is the power supply board. No REFAs. Power supply and AV, I guess. There's your RF modulator. And there is the cutoff switch that cuts off power if the lid is opened. You've got smoothing capacitors. You've got 4 diodes for what is most likely a full wave bridge rectification. Yeah. So we'll be recapping that, and we'll also recap the main board itself. So let's go ahead and get the main board out of here. Actually, first, let me go ahead and see about... No, I'm going to need to get this apart, I think. No, it's just woven in there. Let's see. The RF cord. Get it out of the way. All right, there we go. No more RF. So, to get the rest of the board out of the shielding, we have screws on the bottom. I said early on, this thing is built like a tank, and I wasn't kidding. You could launch rockets at it, and it wouldn't do it any harm. So, now, should be able to remove... Oh. Should be able to remove what did I miss? There we go. Remove the PCB from the wonderful cast aluminum shell RF shield. And you'll notice we have another daughter board here. This, I believe, is the CPU board. So there should be a couple of custom chips, and as I thought, the 6502 microprocessor. So same microprocessors in the Apple II, in the Commodore VIC-20, in the PET, in several other machines, variants of it. Uh, the CPU inside the Atari 2600 is a different revision of the 6502 called the 6507. But there is your CPU board. Your slots for your other RAM and ROM cards, cartridge slots. And look at this thing. This thing is gorgeous and extremely clean, amazingly clean. And I don't even see. There's an electrolytic that'll be changed. I'll probably need to get the rest of this apart. I'm guessing the motherboard is held on by these, which are probably compression clips. See if we can squeeze these and there. Yeah, they are push types. So get me. So you have four little expansion legs, and then in the middle you have the push pin that comes through and pushes those legs out so that they hold the board in place. You just push the middle pin back down through. And are there any on this end? No. So now it should just pop off. Yep, there we go. So there is the bottom part of the cast aluminum shielding and the bottom of the PCB. And again, look at how clean that is and how gorgeous. I love the color. I love everything about it. Now, next will be to remove the guide, this plastic section, and that's just on with clips. Just pop those clips back out of the way, and there you go. And there we have the bare PCB. Again, we have 1982 date codes on the ICs. Look at those resistors. All of those resistors and networks. Diodes, those are for the keyboard. Wow. Amazing. And we do have an edge connector at the back here. That isn't exposed from the case, so I'm not sure what that was for, unless that may have been for testing in the factory. They may have, as they got each one of these done, plugged it in and that connected to the bus and allowed it to run diagnostic testing, maybe. I'm not sure. I have no idea, really. Wow. Gorgeous. So there is one electrolytic here that's going to need to be changed, and then the electrolytics on the power supply board. What I'm doing now is I'm going to test, make sure everything's still good after the recap. To do that, I will need to depress this switch. That's what I'm going to show you. So we'll depress the switch. And we'll turn the power on. Oh, lost the switch, sorry. Something's not good. Okay. Obviously, we don't have a keyboard. That could be an issue. It might have to have the keyboard. Ah, it has to have a keyboard. Okay, so it is working. Just has to have the keyboard attached to come up. Well, that's not uncommon for older computers. Good. So now that we know that that's working, we get to look for that op amp. So there actually wasn't an op amp or a problem with the op amp. The amplification is handled by this little IC. It would appear that is a transistor array, and it seems to be operating perfectly well. The problem with the audio from the AV output was actually my fault. What I did, or what happened, was what I failed to do was check this little dongle. This is a dongle that I've made months ago for use on C64s and VIC-20s that has composite video output and audio output. And what had happened was inside this connector, the ground got lifted. So once I fixed that, this worked again. And that just goes to show you that it is a good idea, and I didn't do this, but it is a good idea to verify your test setup before you work on any computer. If I had verified my setup and made sure this was working, I wouldn't have thought there was a problem with an operational amplifier or some form of amplification. I wouldn't have spent time trying to track it down. But once I realized there was actually a signal on the correct pin, I knew the problem had to be either here or in this cable or with the retro tank, which is sitting back behind where you can see it, and I would have tracked it down much quicker. So that being said, this computer is now fully back to operational status. It has had all of its electrolytic capacitors replaced, and it should be good for a nice long time to go, in the future. So we're going to go ahead and put this thing back together. Now, quick test. Make sure everything's still happy. Oh, I have to close the lid. Sorry. All right, we get the memo pad. So now, let's see if we can play a little Defender with sound this time. Joystick, joystick, joystick. There it is. Oh. And Defender. I should actually, if you right, I should mute my microphone and turn down the volume on my little screen so you don't get echoes. And there we go. One repaired, well, not really repaired, but one recapped and future-proofed Atari 800. It did, as I said, when I first got it, it did have one flaw, one fault, which was a single 4116 DRAM chip, which has been replaced. It is missing the 8 keys, as we talked about. These 3D printed replacements will work for the time being, but whoever ends up with this machine should be on the lookout for replacement keys. They're very rare for this machine and this type of keyboard, but if you're vigilant, you might be able to find them. Oh, and I forgot to put the speaker back in. Well, I'll have to do that off camera. Anyway, that'll do it for today. It's been a fun one. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out and helps the channel. And leave a comment. That also helps. And I love getting to interact with you guys. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And click the notification bell so you get an alert when I send out a new video. Share the video to your social media if you like. Any groups that you think would enjoy this, or any friends you have that you think may enjoy it. I'd appreciate that. Speaking of friends, be sure to check out my friends in our little YouTube Retro Repairers group. That's Joseph Retro Bits, Peter from 8 Bits in the Basement, Captain Commodore Lee, Neil from Retro4U, and Steve from 8-Bit Retro Refix. The links to their channels will be in the description below. I'll also put a link in case any of you don't know about Console 5. That's where I got the recap kit for this machine. They sell recap kits for a number of different brands and models, so you can easily get the recap kit you need rather than having to source the individual components. I'll leave that in the description below as well. Thank you to my patrons. Their names are flashing up on the screen right now, and if you'd like to support the channel, there are links to both Patreon and Ko-Fi in the description below. And that'll do it for today. So until next time, everybody have a great week. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you then.